Houthi-planted mines continue to kill Yemeni civilians nationwide. The World Food Programme warns that millions of Yemenis are food insecure. Houthi launch a campaign to recruit children as soldiers in Hodeidah and Hajj provinces. Good evening. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. I am Abir Ali. Chairman of the Presidential Leadership Council, Rashad Al-Alimi, briefed the European ambassadors on developments in the situation on the national scene. During his meeting in Aden with the European Union ambassadors, Al-Alimi explained the challenges facing the security and stability of the region. The president called for more European pressure on the militia in order to turn to peace option. Massam, the mining project, announced the removal of more than 5,000 mines and explosive devices during the month of August. The media center indicated that the total of mines that has been removed since the launch of Massam project exceeds 400,000. A citizen and his wife were killed, and 3 members of his family were seriously injured in a mine explosion in Hodeidah Governorate. Hodeidah Governorate is one of the Yemeni governorates most contaminated with Houthi mines and explosives. This report has more details.
A Yemeni citizen and his wife were killed, and 3 members of his family were seriously injured as a result of the explosion of a mine planted by the Houthi militia in Hodeidah Governorate, Western Yemen. Earlier, a Yemeni observatory specializing in documenting victims and effects of explosive remnants of war warned of the danger of mines swept away by the floods to the lives of farmers in Hodeidah Governorate. For more than 8 years now, the bloody conflict in Yemen has killed and wounded civilians from all segments of society. A large proportion of them are women and children who fell victim to landmines planted by the Houthis. According to a United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, the most affected areas from landmines are the front lines in Al Hodeidah and Al Jawf governorates. The International Committee of the Red Cross says Yemen has one of the world's highest rates of contamination with landmine and other deadly explosives. Yemen is estimated to have at least 1 million mines that have been planted during years of war. According to the United Nations linked Civilian Impact Monitoring Project, landmines, unexploded shells, and other weapons or munitions left behind during the fighting have killed and injured 1,469 civilians in Yemen over the past 5 years. Clearing Yemen of mines needs years of work, given the large quantities of planted mines and a lack of data on where these mines were planted.
The World Food Programme said in a report that due to the stifling funding crisis, the WFP were forced to make cuts in the malnutrition prevention program and reduce activities related to resilience and livelihoods.
As we face an unprecedented global hunger crisis, concerns for the 70 million people who have long been food insecure in Yemen are at all-time high. While the crisis in Yemen is one of the most dire, brought on by protracted conflict, droughts and floods intensified by the climate crisis, COVID-19 and other diseases, while it has failed to attract adequate support from donors for years. In Sana'a, Aden, Amran and Lahj, there are several cases suffering from extreme needs for nutritional supplements and medicine, and many cases of children suffering from severe acute malnutrition. The United Nations Office for Humanitarian Affairs confirmed that the food security situation in Yemen has worsened, amid an estimate that the situation will continue until December, with an expected increase in the number of people in Phase 3 of the interim classification of food security. According to a recent report on the humanitarian situation, the office stated that an additional 638,500 people have joined the list of people suffering from food insecurity. In its report, the office indicated that the malnutrition situation is complex, resulting from a combination of factors including food insecurity, poor food quality, measles outbreaks, low coverage in immunization campaigns, limited access to clean water and sanitation, and high levels of diseases. The report warned that very high food insecurity deprives children of adequate food, and the quality of food is also affected, which means that children need to get the micronutrients they need for growth. Also, poor access to clean water and sanitation makes children vulnerable to diseases. Men and women are working tirelessly on the front lines to support the people in need and to preserve their dignity despite the complex situation. But moral responsibility demands more urgent action to save lives now. The international community and donors must immediately scale up support to address the widespread hunger and malnutrition.
The ongoing conflict in Yemen is escalating at the issue of children soldiers who are targeted, recruited and trained, with the process being institutionalized and glorified. This report has more details.
As part of their escalation and reluctance to renew the truce that expired in October 2022, the Iranian-backed terrorist Houthi militias have increased child recruitment campaigns in regions under their control. According to local sources, the militia forced hundreds of young men in Hajjah and Hudaydah to join what is known as temporary recruitment, in which these young men were relocated to special military camps in Sana'a, Amran, and other places. They attended closed training campaigns and had their cell phones seized from them before entering. According to sources, who also confirmed that contact between the parents and their children, who were taken by the Houthis, was severed roughly 3 weeks ago. The militia sent its leaders to the governorates of Amran, Hajjah, Raima, and Al-Hudaydah to gather youth and children, indicating that it had sent some recruits, including children, to training camps in Sana'a. The National Committee to investigate government allegations of human rights violations documented the terrorist Houthi militia's recruitment of 116 children under the age of 18. The committee expressed its concern about the Houthi militia's violations, which are confirmed through documents, photos, and videos, indicating the use and recruitment of children during armed conflicts, whether directly participating in the fighting or providing assistance to Houthi fighters, in the governorates of Sana'a, Sa'da, and Ib, Al-Jawf, and Amran. Observers argue that these recruitment operations, combined with recent reports of Houthis sending military reinforcements to the governorates of Hudaydah, Ta'az, and Ma'rib, confirms their proclivity to detonate the situation militarily in order to escape the political entitlements and internal crises plaguing the areas under their control. The recruitment of children is considered a grave violation prohibited by national and international agreements concerned with the protection of children. The United Nations Group of Experts on Yemen Sanctions Committee stated in its most recent report to the UN Security Council that the Houthis recruited and trained 1,201 young people between July 1st, 2021 and August 31st, 2022.
أبي مات بشارع 40 دحين أنا أشقى على أسرتي مع باقي اللي أنا أصرف عليهم كل شيء. أنا اسمي أنس وصيب سيف عمري 12 سنة. أنا أشتغل بورشة حديد من الساعة 7 للساعة 6. أحيانا أسرع، أحيانا أقص، أحيانا أرنق، أحيانا أنقش، أي حاجة أنا أعمل. لا الساعة لما تدين الساعة 6 أوقف. أنا وقفت الدراسة علشان ما فيش أحد يشقى على أسرتي. أدرس إخواني الباقي منهم 4 وأنا الخامس. أحلمنا نفتح ورشة أبي وأشقى على أسرتي وندي لهم مصاري وأدرس أخوتي الآخر الجامعات وأطبخ أي شيء.
Coming up in the news. Yemenis resist Houthis' oppression by conducting wedding and graduation ceremonies. Welcome back. A 13-year-old girl died from diphtheria after health authorities under the terrorist Houthi militia control refused to give her treatment. Human rights organizations accused the health authorities of the Houthi militia of concealing doses of some epidemics that they obtained from international organizations with the aim of selling them in their pharmacies. The United Nations Population Fund announced that about 7 million Yemenis are in need of mental health care during the current year. There is only one psychiatrist for every 700,000 people, which is a much lower percentage than the global standard. This report has more.
Teachers in Yemen are going through difficult living conditions, especially with the interruption of their salaries for 7 years, which caused them to suffer from psychological disorders and led many of them to commit suicide and take their lives away. Others became homeless on the streets. Teachers are depressed that they can't provide for their children and families. They can't even afford getting medication for themselves when they get sick, because the circumstances that led them to this situation are the same ones that prevent the possibility of expensive treatment. About a month ago, the United Nations Population Fund announced that about 7 million Yemenis are in need of mental health care during the current year, with the scarcity of availability of mental health care in Yemen, as there is only one psychiatrist for every 700,000 people, which is a percentage much lower than the global standard that requires about 40 psychiatrists for every 100,000 people. According to the United Nations Population Fund, only 120,000 people out of 7 million Yemenis have access to mental health care services, a small number that is completely unbalanced to the size of the growing needs. The fund stressed that Yemen is still far from the global standard for mental health care, noting that it allocated part of the funding it received from the United States Agency for Development, estimated at $23 million to provide psychosocial support services in 14 hospitals and 4 mobile clinics, in addition to 20 safe spaces for women and girls to provide psychological care. The fund's announcement coincided with a suicide incident in which an employee of the General Electricity Corporation in Amran Governorate committed suicide after he was fired from his job and got deprived of the small amounts he received under the name incentive. He was fired along with dozens of his colleagues by a Houthi leader who controls the branch of the electricity corporation in the governorate. The governorate witnessed the most suicides of teachers, as more than 5 teachers committed suicide in 2019 alone due to the interruption of their salaries.
Workers in the oil sector in Shabwa Governorate began a strike against the delays in their salaries. The union statement called on all employees and workers in the sector to continue the strike until the salaries of the last July and August are paid and all rights are paid as well. A leaked document revealed that the Iranian-backed Houthi militia dismissed 29 employees from the Central Oversight and Accounting Organization in Sana'a. Last July, the Houthi militia fired these employees as part of this series of Houthization of state institutions and dismissal of government cadres. University students choose graduation ceremonies to express their rejection of the Houthi militia. The students have recently turned graduation into occasions to declare opposition of the co-authority. This report has more.
The intelligence service of the Houthi group established a place in each university called the University Student Forum, through which males were separated from females, and the contents of parties and what was presented at them were controlled, while imposing strict restrictions on their establishment. Yemenis, on the other hand, devised a new means to express their resistance to the sectarian project. Residents of the areas controlled by the coup, who were experiencing severe repression, went about turning wedding celebrations in villages, cities, and towns into national events, beginning with the playing of the national anthem, while wedding halls were decorated with the Republican eagle and national flags, concluding with a statement rejecting any attempts to bring the nation back to the sectarian era. 2 days ago, the wedding of one of the tribal leader's son was transformed into a massive public festival, during which Yemeni constants were reaffirmed in the anniversary of the fall of the Imamate ruling system and the establishment of the Republic in northern Yemen on September 26, 1962 was commemorated. The wedding ceremony, held in a hall adjacent to Al-Hamra's house in Al-Hasba neighborhood, was attended by thousands of people. It came days after the well-known tribal leader was attacked by the Houthi militia activists against the backdrop of his reception of symbols opposing the coup, who support teachers demanding payment of their salaries, and weeks after Houthi effort to create a tribal leader failed. Politicians in Sana'a, tribal sheikhs from across the country, intellectuals and activists flocked to the wedding ceremony, which began with the national anthem and chanting of the Republican anthem, and it was described as the strongest public appearance since the sheikh was chosen for this occasion as a successor to his brother. Holding wedding ceremonies sends a clear statement that verifies Yemeni's agreement on the importance of adhering to the Republican system and constructing a state for all Yemenis.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Houthi planted mines continue to kill Yemeni civilians nationwide. The World Food Programme warns that millions of Yemenis are food insecure. Houthis launch a campaign to recruit children as soldiers in Hodeidah and Hajj provinces. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching. It was Abir Ali.